Okay, you're out there with AOC today. Do you see her as a future of...
Okay, Jonathan, thanks.
Wait, I got one more. This is important.
Well, I asked you.
Okay.
You want to do nonsense? Do nonsense.
No.
I don't want to talk about inside the beltway stuff. I got 32,000 people.
I was just asking you about AOC because she was out there.
Well, yeah, fine, but I don't want to talk about...
Bernie Sanders and AOC have teamed up to fight the oligarchy, and even if they come from the same socialist school, people are asking one question. Why? Or in fact, two questions. Why and how long is this going to last? Because it is obvious that Bernie can't do this by himself. The guy is 81 right now.
I am 83 years of age, so... And I'm tired.
Oh, yeah, sorry, 83. That's older than Joe Biden. In fact, so maybe the AOC team up is to pass the baton? Or more accurately, the little red book? In this video, I will be taking a look at their body language, especially the most recent Bernie Sanders interview with Jonathan Karl of ABC News, more precisely when he's asked about illegal immigration and his opinion about AOC going to the Senate. I want to confirm if they are just pretending to be a good match, and most important, if they actually believe in what they preach. And by actually believe, I just want to remind you that Bernie Sanders, a U.S. Senator from Vermont who earns around $200K per year, became a millionaire selling books that criticize capitalism. Yeah, it doesn't get more South Park than that. Hello and welcome back, my body language buddies. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss any of my body language analysis and tips. Let's get down to it. When you want to analyze body language, first you have to establish people's intentions. And the first step is, well, defining what is Sanders standing for. I'm going to refer specifically to him for now because he's the one pushing this movement. Anyway, Sanders is using the term anti-oligarchy in the sense that he wants to fight a small group of people having control of a country or organization. It's obvious that he's referring to Donald Trump and Elon Musk, perhaps the two people in the world that better represent capitalism itself. Now, going for the incumbent is something that is obvious, right? This is Donald Trump's second term. There's this civil war brewing inside the Democrat Party, so if Bernie stands any chance as an independent, this is the one. Unless, of course, Jill Biden and the autopen bot decide to run again in 2028. That could be called a Temu technocracy. But to be fair, Bernie is not all critical of Donald Trump. In fact, when he was asked his opinion about what is Donald Trump doing, doing well, he says that, well, a stronger border is a good idea. Pay attention to his body language and how he emphasizes every word.
Is there anything that you think Trump has done right?
Yeah, I mean, I think cracking down on fentanyl, making sure our borders are stronger. Look, nobody thinks that illegal immigration is appropriate.
There are truth signals in his statement. For one, the time he took to answer was not that short, so that could mean that the answer was not rehearsed in advance. He also made sure to emphasize words like fentanyl and stronger border with his head. That is important. But it's interesting that he made sure to say that nobody thinks illegal immigration is appropriate. That is a very different stance than the time he raised his hand during the 2020 Democrat primaries, saying that he'd give illegal aliens taxpayer-funded health insurance. He's been incentivizing it for a long time. And just in case if a picture is not worth 1,000 words, here's him in 2019 saying that his Medicare for All plans would cover all illegal immigrants.
We will organize the American people around the concept that all people in this country have the right to health care, and at the end of the day, we are going to win that struggle.
Senator, would you include the 11 million undocumented immigrants in that?
Absolutely. When I talk about health care being a human right, last time I heard that undocumented people are human beings as well.
Thank you.
Now, to be fair, two things can be true at the same time. Illegal immigration could be bad for any country, as it in fact is, and you might advocate that Medicare covers anyone who needs it. My idea is that Bernie, as the Democrats as well, they all know that a huge percentage of people in the United States simply doesn't want illegal migrants just being released into the United States. Even if there could be differences between the percentages of Democrats and Republicans, there are enough studies that prove most people want less illegal immigration, not more. Sanders doubles down on that.
but I don't think that it's appropriate for people to be coming across the border illegally. So we've got to work now on comprehensive immigration reform.
I guess it's even worse if they have been purposefully being flown inside the country, as the Biden-Harris administration did over 4 years and were caught red-handed. Both Kamala Harris and Alejandro Mayorkas started a policy of flying inadmissible aliens into the interior of the country, up to 45,000 per month, which was more or less the amount of inadmissible aliens that entered the country in the previous 10 years. But at the same time, for Bernie, it's not that simple, because just 10 seconds after saying that nobody thinks illegal immigration is appropriate, he says that mass deportations are going to, wait for it, destroy the entire country. Make sure you pay attention to the very subtle pacifying gesture he's going to do, touching his nose.
The idea that Trump has, I don't know what his latest numbers are, he wants to deport 20 million people who are in this country who are undocumented. Well, you do that, you destroy the entire country.
At some point, you start to realize that the true heroes of these interviews are the interviewers, who have to adapt on the fly to the nonsense that these people say. And I'm sure that you want to know the reason why Sanders thinks mass deportations will be catastrophic for the economy, right? Not going to leave you hanging. Make sure you pay attention to his words.
Because I got news for you, Trump's billionaire friends are not going to pick the crops in California that feed us. They're not going to work in meat packing houses. That's what undocumented people are doing.
Yeah, you might argue about if the term illegal is appropriate or not, and you just noticed something. He switched the terms. He was talking about illegal immigration, right? He said the word illegal twice. But now when he's talking about Trump and his billionaire friends not willing to pick the crops and work at meat packing houses, he says undocumented people are doing that. Now, my question is, shouldn't American citizens be doing those jobs? Why are undocumented people picking the crops? Is that even legal? And I don't think for a minute that is as simple as, oh, it's because Americans don't want to do those jobs. That is the most asinine generalization that anybody can come up with. But since Bernie is so hell-bent into making billionaires and corporate CEOs and millionaires... Scratch that one. He is a millionaire himself. If he acknowledges what is going on with those jobs in the United States, wouldn't the right approach be to try to make it bad business or even illegal to hire undocumented people? Well, in fact, it should already be illegal, right? But is it being enforced? Well, as Tom Homan says, nobody hires illegal migrants out of the kindness of their hearts.
No one hires an illegal alien, I truly believe, out of the goodness of their heart. They hire them because they work them harder, pay them less, and undercut their competition.
Which brings us briefly to AOC, who just admitted that she was, in fact, advising criminal aliens on how to avoid ICE detection and deportation. Make sure you pay attention to her eye and head movement.
Holman was upset, I suppose, because he felt that you were giving advice to people who were here illegally. Mm-hmm. Were you?
I was giving advice to all of my constituents. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, the word constituents includes all the people who live in the area that you represent. But if we are talking about common sense, there should be some kind of hierarchy, something that socialists don't like. But I don't know. I think that American citizens who are veterans or homeless or who are disabled should take precedence over those who enter the country illegally. I'm pretty sure regardless of how she wants to present herself and how dumb she can sound sometimes, I'm sure that she's aware that she has to tread carefully when it comes down to, well, using her Instagram to give tips about what to do if you see ICE in public. But before we talk about Bernie storming out of the interview when AOC is mentioned, we need to address the fact that there are two words that AOC is using repeatedly in her speeches. And those words are, ironically, common sense.
So let me share with you exactly what I mean. Because when they like to call us radical, and what they like to call me as radical, I believe is common sense.
Okay, she's all up for common sense. That is nice. But by the way, I think that she should be careful with that kind of gestures. I don't think that she would like to be mistaken for a Nazi or something. But this was in Las Vegas. When you take a closer look at her other appearances, like in Arizona, you realize that this is a tight script.
Because what they call radical, I believe, is common sense. If a person gets sick, they shouldn't go bankrupt. Common sense. I believe that a minimum wage should cover the minimum cost to live. Common sense.
Yeah, she not only makes sure to repeat it word for word, but also says the words common sense 3 times in less than 1 minute, and making sure to flank it with pauses. This is something that you do to emphasize a concept, to make it like a mantra. Now, I am not going to elaborate on how her arguments are not really common sense, but in all cases, to be fair, it should be fair that if you work a 9 to 5, you should be able to earn a living wage that allows you to sustain your family. It should be fair to not go bankrupt if you get sick. In theory, everybody should have the same opportunities to be able to make it in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. Please notice that having the opportunities is one thing and being handed the results to you is another, because in that case, you didn't earn it. Now, going back to the Sanders interview, the other crazy part is then when he just storms out after he's asked not once but twice about AOC. And the thing is that as many times, the clip that has been doing the rounds on the internet does not tell the whole story. In fact, it's way more interesting to see that Sanders avoided to address AOC directly more than once. Make sure to pay attention to his eyes.
Okay, you're out there with AOC today. Do you see her as a future of the progressive?
We have one of the untold stories
Yeah.
of what's going on in current American politics is that in the House of Representatives, you have dozens and dozens of strong, smart, disciplined, hardworking young people in the Progressive Caucus.
Notice that he was asked a direct question about AOC, and he avoided addressing her directly. Also, his eyes were all over the place when he was speaking. He could not establish eye contact with the interviewer. I noticed that this is something that Bernie does sometimes, because you might remember that when he was talking about Trump's immigration policies, he had no trouble keeping eye contact.
Yeah, I mean, I think cracking down on fentanyl, making sure our borders are stronger. Look, nobody thinks that illegal immigration is appropriate.
Now, to be fair, Sanders rambles about the progressive caucus a few more seconds and then finally addresses AOC directly. But again, can you spot if he's talking with the same confidence of other topics?
Alexandria is extraordinary. I am so impressed by her work in Congress and she inspires young people all over the country.
Yeah, he even stumbles a bit when talking about her and never keeps eye contact. That is odd because he has invited her to every single rally of this Fight the Oligarchy tour, so one would think that she has become instrumental for whatever his plans are. Which makes it even more baffling when he is asked about the possibility of AOC becoming a senator, and he not only storms out of the interview, but he tells the interviewer that he's talking nonsense. I wish I was making this up.
Would you like to see her joining the Senate?
Right now, we have, as I said, just a whole lot of people in the Congress. Okay, Jonathan, thanks.
Wait, I got one more. This is important.
Well, I asked you.
Okay.
You want to do nonsense, do nonsense.
No.
You can see the exact moment when Jonathan's heart was broken. As in, what is going on? What did I say? Why are you just living like that? But he managed to bring Bernie back, and not before a brief back and forth.
I don't want to talk about inside the Beltway stuff. I got 32,000 people.
I was just asking you about AOC because she was out there with you.
Yeah, fine, but I don't want to talk about this. What was the last question?
I was just going to ask you one more question about you. I mean, that's all. I was literally your last.
What is your question?
Well, I mean, it's easier to sit.
Now, if you asked me, why did Bernie Sanders react like that? Why did he storm out of the interview after that question? And why was he so explicit in not wanting to talk about AOC? I have no idea. I can only tell you from a body language perspective that he was absolutely pissed. Not only in the way he was looking at Jonathan, but the way he was turning his lips inwards, which is also a covert anger signal. Also, I don't know if this was because he stood up quickly and then sat down, but his face, as you see on the right, had also a more reddish tone, which is also consistent with covert anger. So again, we know that he was furious. We still don't know what triggered him. If you have any theory about this, make sure to share it in the comments. Now, I'm sure that you want to know if the Sanders AOC thing is actually a thing. And there are videos of the rallies like this in Denver where Sanders claims that we are looking at 34,000 people. The largest political rally there since 2008. His words, not mine. Now, I don't know if these are really more than 30,000 people, and some people have serious doubts about his claims. One of them is Tony Saruga, who usually claims to track devices in the United States. He says that it was more like 20,000, and most of them had attended 9 or more Kamala Harris rallies, among others. Like saying like this is like a rent a crowd. Now, I usually take these figures with a grain of salt, but considering how frustrated could be many Kamala voters that were left bittersweet and want to do something about it, well, could be a thing. But one thing is for certain. All this only means that both Sanders and AOC are helping divide the Democrat Party and the independents as well. And the more a party fragments, well, the harder it is to win elections. On the other hand, I think this is the natural byproduct of all the insanity that the Democrat Party has pushed in recent years. So that might be the reason so many Democrats want to, let's say, take a not so small step aside. Gavin Newsom is an example. Make sure to say that he doesn't think men in women's sports was a good idea, or that he never used the term Latinx, and was promptly corrected by none other than CNN.
By the way, not one person ever in my office has ever used the word Latinx.
So can we finally put that to bed?
Yeah,
we agree?
where did that even
No
go?
more Latinx,
like,
everybody.
Well, I just didn't even know where it came from. I'm like, what are people talking about?
But there was a person who used Latinx. It was actually a really important person.
I hope we can really paint a picture in terms of our consciousness of how impactful this has been on the Latinx community. The Latinx and Black communities. You've got politicians that are banning not assault rifles, but the word Latinx. They're not even serious.
My body language buddies, remember to download my free 100 body language tips in the description of this video. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy. Much love and bliss.